The Tagma is a term for a military unit of battalion or regiment size. The best known and most technical use of the term, however, refers to the elite regiments formed by Byzantine Emperor Constantine V and comprising the central army of the Byzantine Empire in the 8th–11th centuries. History and role. In its original sense, the term Tagma is attested from the 4th century and was used to refer to an infantry battalion of 200 to 400 men in the contemporary East Roman army. In this sense, the term continues in use in the modern Greek military. Imperial Guards. 8th–10th centuries. In later Byzantine usage, the term came to refer exclusively to the professional, standing troops garrisoned in and around the capital of Constantinople. Most of them traced their origins to the Imperial Guard units of the later Roman Empire. By the 7th century, these had declined to little more than parade troops, meaning that the emperors were hard put to face the frequent revolts of the new and powerful thematic formations, especially the oppositions. The Asian theme closest to the capital. Within the first 60 years since its creation, it was involved in 5 revolts, culminating in the briefly successful rebellion and usurpation of the throne by its commander, the Count Artabasdos, in 741–743. After putting down the revolt, Emperor Constantine V reformed the old guard units of Constantinople into the new Tagmata regiments, which were meant to provide the emperor with a corps of professional and loyal troops, both as a defense against provincial revolts, and also, at the time, as a formation devoted to Constantine's iconoclastic policies. The Tagmata were exclusively heavy cavalry units, more mobile than the theme troops, and maintained on a permanent basis. During the defensive phase of the empire in the 8th and 9th centuries, their role was that of a central reserve, garrisoned in and around the capital. In regions such as Thrace and Bithynia, they formed the core of the imperial army on campaign, augmented by the provincial levies of thematic troops, who were more concerned with local defense. In addition, like their late Roman counterparts, they served as a recruiting and promotion ground for young officers. A career in a Tagma could lead to a major commands in the provincial thematic armies or a high court appointment, as promising young men had the opportunity to catch the emperor's attention. Offices in the Tagmata came primarily either from the relatively well-off urban aristocracy and officialdom, or the landed aristocracy of the Anatolian themes, which increasingly came to control the higher military offices of the state. Nevertheless, the Tagmata, as indeed military and state service in general, offered a degree of upwards social mobility for the lower strata of society. In their heyday in the 9th and early 10th centuries, there were 4 Tagmata proper. The Scolae were the Mosar unit, the direct successor of the imperial guards established by Constantine the Great. The term Scholarioi, although in its stricter sense referring solely to the men of the Scolae, was also used as a general reference for all common soldiers of the Tagmata. The excalbitoire or excubators, established by Leo I. The arithmos or vigla, promoted from thematic troops by the Empress Irene in the 780s, but of far older ancestry, as the archaic names of its ranks indicate. The regiment performed special duties on campaign, including guarding the imperial camp, relaying the emperor's orders, and guarding prisoners of war. The Hercanatoire, established by Emperor Nicephorus I in 810. Other units closely related to the Tagmata, and often included among them, were the Numeroi, were a garrison unit for Constantinople, which probably included the Tychaste or Tundacian regiment, manning the walls of Constantinople. The unit's origins may lie as far back as the 4th–5th centuries. The Optimatoire, although formerly an elite fighting unit, had by the 8th century been reduced to a support unit. responsible for the mules of the army's baggage train. Unlike the Tagmata, it was garrisoned outside Constantinople and closely associated with its garrison area. The Tagma Optimaton, which lay across Constantinople and comprised northern Bithynia. The commanding domesticos of the Optimatoire was also the governor of the Tagma. The men of the Central Imperial Fleet are also counted among the Tagmata in some sources. In addition, there was also the Hetairae, which comprised the mercenary corps in imperial service, subdivided in greater, middle and lesser, each commanded by a respective hetaiarches. Organization. There is much debate as to the exact size and composition of the imperial Tagmata, owing to the inaccuracy and ambiguity of the few contemporary sources that deal with them. Our primary sources, the accounts of Arab geographers Ibn Khordadbeh and Qudamah, are somewhat ambiguous, but they give the overall Tagmata strength at 24,000. This figure has been seen by many scholars, such as John Bagnall Berry and John Halden, as too high, and revised estimates put the strength of each Tagma at 1,000–1,500 men. Others, like Warren Treadgold and Friedhelm Winkelmann, accept these numbers and correlate them with the list of officers in the Kletrologion to reach an average size of 4,000 for each Tagma. The Tagmatic units were all organized along similar lines. They were commanded by a domesticos, except for the Vigla, which was commanded by a drumgarios. He was assisted by one or two officers called topitarites, each of whom commanded one half of the unit. Unlike the thematic units, there were no permanent intermediate command levels until Leo VI introduced the Drumgarios California, after 902. The largest subdivision of the Tagmata was the Bandon, commanded by a Combs, called Scriban in the Excubitors and Tribanos in the Numeroi and Walls units. The banda in turn were divided in companies, headed by a Kentarchus, or Draconarios for the Excubitors, and Vicarios for the Numeroi and Walls units. The Domesticos Tunscolan, the head of the Scolae regiment, became gradually more and more important, eventually coming to be the most senior officer of the entire army by the end of the 10th century. The following table illustrates the structure of the Scolae in the 9th century, according to Treadgold. In addition, there were a Chartularios and a Protomandator, as well as 40 standard bearers, of varying ranks and titles in each Tagma, and 40 mandators, for a total unit size of 4,125. On campaign, every Tagmatic cavalryman was accompanied by a servant. The next table gives the evolution of the theoretical establishment size of the entire imperial Tagmatic force, again as calculated by Warren Treadgold. Professional regiments, 10th–11th centuries. As the Byzantine Empire embarked on its campaigns of reconquest in the 10th century, the Tagmata became more active, and were posted often in garrison duties in the provinces or in newly conquered territories. In addition to the older units, a number of new and specialized units were formed to meet the demands of this more aggressive style of warfare. Michael II raised the short-lived Tesseract Ontarioe, a special marine unit, and John I Tzimiskes created a heavy cataphract corps called the Athanatoi after the old Persian unit, which were revived in the late 11th century by Michael VII Ducas. Other similar units were the Stratolartai, likewise formed by John Tzimiskes, the short-lived satrapi of the 970s, the Megathemoi of the 1040s, or the Archontopoli and Vestiaritai of Alexios I. Many of the new Tagmata were composed of foreigners, such as the Maniacolitai, formed by George Maniacs from Franks in Italy, or the most famous of all Tagmatic units, the 6,000-strong mercenary Varangian Guard, established California, 988 by Emperor Basil II. The reign of Basil II also saw the beginnings of a profound transformation of the Byzantine military system. In the mid-10th century, The decline in the numbers of the thematic forces and the exigencies of the new offensive strategy on the eastern border gave rise to an increasing number of provincial Tagmata, permanent professional forces modeled after the imperial Tagmata. The great conquests in the east in the 960s were secured by the creation of an array of smaller themata, in which detachments of these professional forces were based, eventually to be grouped under regional commanders with the title of Duorcate Pano. This strategy was effective against small-scale local threats, but the concurrent neglect of the thematic forces reduced the state's ability to respond effectively to a major invasion that succeeded in penetrating the frontier buffer zone. The decline of the part-time thematic armies and the increasing reliance on a large array of permanent units, both indigenous and mercenary, was based not only on the greater military effectiveness of the latter in the more offensive Byzantine strategy of the era, but also on the greater reliability as opposed to the thematic troops with their local ties. The Tagmata recruited from the larger themata were probably 1,000 men strong, while those from the smaller themata may have numbered California 500 men. Foreign, chiefly Frankish mercenary units, also seem to have numbered 400 to 500 men. Consequently, in the 11th century, the distinction between imperial and provincial forces largely vanished, and the term Tagma was applied to any permanent formed regiment, and regional origins and identities are prominently displayed in the unit's titles. After California 1050, like the thematic armies, the original Tagmata slowly declined, and were decimated in the military disasters of the latter third of the 11th century. Except for the Varangians, the Vestiaritai, the Hetareia and the Vardariatai, the older guard units disappear altogether by California 1100 and are absent from the 12th century Komnenian army. In the Komnenian army, the term Tagma reverted to a non-specific meaning of military unit.